Robyn Flynn filling in for Elias Makos all this week. That's Apple by Charlie XCX. Have you heard? It's Brat Summer. Kamala is Brat, at least according to Charlie XCX. I hear that song and I just want to do the dance. I see everybody doing the dance on TikTok. Don't worry, I'm not going to. As an elder millennial, I know my place. But Kamala Harris has managed to get Gen Z's attention on social media, but will she actually get their vote? Here to chat a little bit about that is Rachael Dziaba. She's an editorial intern at the American Prospect, and she wrote a fantastic article called How Kamala Harris Can Win Over Gen Z. What's really cool about this article is I noticed there's an option to listen to this article for 11 minutes. Instead of reading it, you can listen to someone read it, which is really cool. Rachael, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me.
So my day job when I'm not filling in on the radio is actually a social media marketing strategist. So I know better than anyone that a campaign like this that we've seen from Kamala Harris doesn't just come out of nowhere. It requires weeks of planning and strategizing, content creation. So while it seems like Kamala's popularity with young Americans kind of happened overnight after Joe Biden announced he was not seeking re-election, the reality is her team's probably been working on this campaign for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I definitely think the Harris campaign is doing a really great job with marketing. But I do think that part of the attention and part of the trend about Brat Summer and all this stuff really did happen somewhat organically around young people who just found her funny and entertaining and just decided to make videos and edit some of her lines. And I think that's part of the reason that this attention is so kind of amazing and organic.
And it's cool to see the campaign actually jump on board, right? Because there's lots of trends and memes that pop up in the political sphere online, and the candidates largely ignore this stuff. But the fact that her team was like, yeah, we're going to throw that green filter over every single picture of Kamala Harris and, you know, retweeting Charlie XCX. And I feel like it's just a matter of time before we see Kamala doing the Charlie XCX dance. Like, I'm curious why you think this campaign in particular is really resonating with young voters.
Yeah, so I think, like, first of all, just the decision for Biden to step down, I think it really prompted a sigh of relief around young people. A lot of them did not want a matchup of the 2020 election, which is what we have right now, and people were concerned about Biden's age. And, you know, for Gen Z, the oldest of Gen Z, their first election was in 2016, and so they've really only had elections where it's like a Trump versus someone else matchup, and they've never had a candidate younger than 60 until now. So I think just the fact that, you know, she's young, she's exciting, she's relatable, really re-energized young people and made them feel hopeful and excited about this election.
I noticed, according to vote.org, there was a surge in voter registrations. Nearly 40,000 people registered to vote after Biden dropped out of the race, and that actually broke a record for the most in 48 hours. Do you think this would have happened if we were looking at maybe a different candidate, or if it was still really up in the air who the candidate for the Democrats would be?
Yeah, you know, I think that's a good question. I think it's kind of tough to say. I definitely think the fact that, you know, Democrats solidified around Harris and people kind of had like a focal point who was already, a lot of the edits and memes about Kamala, I think kind of existed pre-Biden stepping down, but just didn't really blow up until that moment. So I do think like her being the candidate had something to do with it. And also, you know, she's potentially going to be a historic president, not only the first female president, but the first woman of color. And I think that itself is really exciting compared to another candidate who wouldn't have made that history.
Absolutely. In conversation with Rachael Dziaba, she's an editorial intern at the American Prospect. We're chatting about Kamala Harris really resonating with young voters. Traditionally, though, young voters haven't really showed up to actually vote. I don't know if that's maybe because they didn't feel like there was a candidate that represented them, or the issues that mattered most to them weren't at the forefront. So I'm curious, Rachael, as a young voter yourself, what issues would you say are most important to young Americans right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think right now, affordable housing, healthcare, prices are huge on a lot of young people's minds. They feel like they're struggling a lot of people have just become adults and they're struggling to, make rent or have money in case of an emergency. So I think like economic issues like other voters are extremely important, but some things that are really specific to young voters, obviously reproductive rights are majorly affecting people in that 18 to 29 age range. And then also, climate change, Israel, Gaza, immigration, issues like that. So there are things that the broader populace cares about, but I think those issues especially resonate for young people.
You're listening to the Elias Mackos Show on CJD 800. Robyn Flynn filling in conversation with Rachael Dziaba from the American Prospect. Rachael, we're getting text messages here at 514-790-0800. People are a little jaded. They don't think that young people are actually going to show up to vote. But it feels a little different this time. I feel like there is an energy surrounding Kamala Harris. But I mean, granted, I'm in Canada. What do I know? You're actually down in the States. Are you feeling like there's a difference this time around?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing I'll say to that is, last election in 2020, we saw historic youth turnout that really helped carry Biden to victory. So it is possible when young people feel like they're being heard and being listened to. And I think there is a lot of energy and enthusiasm for having a young candidate. And, one really significant thing is that a lot of groups, whether those are like youth advocacy groups, social media influencer groups like Gen Z for Change, that really was fueling the TikTok content around Biden in 2020, and also college groups like College Democrats of America. A lot of those groups actually hadn't endorsed or fully put their support behind Biden so far in the race. They were kind of holding back. They were criticizing his policies towards Palestine. And after the Harris announcement, almost all of those groups have come out in endorsement of Harris and are planning to, campaign, put out messaging. And that shift itself, I think, will have a huge impact on whether people are going to turn out and whether they're hearing positive things about Harris and her policies and having the support on their college campus or in their community that will actually allow them to register to vote and show up on Election Day.
I think one of the reasons that Joe Biden managed to find popularity with young people in the last presidential election was his promise to forgive student loans. I think that is something that is really crippling so many young American workers. Do you think that there is one major issue that Kamala Harris can sort of rally behind that would sort of, solidify the support of the young vote?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I think reproductive rights is something that a lot of people have mentioned that she already has had a pretty good track record on. I think Israel-Palestine is something else other people have said. Ultimately, I don't think one issue will solve it all. I think continuing championing student debt forgiveness is important. But then, of course, there are problems like inflation and immigration that the Republican Party and the Trump campaign are really using to try to draw young voters back towards them. And so I think those issues also have to be addressed as well. So I think it'll be a combination of things.
Rachael Dziaba is editorial intern at the American Prospect. She wrote the article, How Kamala Harris Can Win Over Gen Z. Rachael, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.